all here tonight. We're going to start right off. We had a scheduled public hearing. So I'll read it. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Homer Town Board on August 14th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at the Homer Town Hall, 31 North Main Street, Homer, New York. The public hearing is being held to hear comments on the board's consideration of Local Law 1 of 2024. A local law relating to unsafe structures and property in the town of Homer. A copy of the proposed local law may be viewed at the office of the town clerk during regular business hours. Contact the office of the town clerk at phone number. Persons wishing to speak on the proposed local law may do so in person, by attorney, or by another representative. Communications in writing in relation, therefore, may be filed ahead of time with the board or at such hearing. That's from Heather Hill, town clerk, on the behalf of the town board. So our town public hearing is open. Is there anybody that has any comments on unsafe structures? Okay, then the public hearing is closed. We'll move right on to our minutes from our July 17th meeting. So I need a motion to accept the minutes or change it. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept them as is.
Great. Second on that?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. General bills.
All right, I reviewed general voucher numbers 172 to 197 with a total of $26,068.60. It was a little bigger than normal, but we had a couple oddball ones out. The largest chunk was the construction fees for $9,790 for the building plans for the construction project they were due, and also the rest of the preserving the painting for the carpenter painting. That was $3,000. Other than that, everything's good. Normal.
Need a second on that? You're making the motion to. So I need a second on.
I'll second that.
Second it. Any more discussion on general bills? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Highway bills.
Mr. Supervisor, I have highway bills. I'd like to do in two votes tonight. I've audited the same. I'd like to offer vouchers 94 through 107, subtracting out voucher 98. Okay, for $11,738.32. I'll make a motion that we authorize payment.
Need a second?
I'll second it.
Barry seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next motion I'd like to offer on the town vouchers is voucher number 98 for Homer Ironworks for $1,778. I have excluded it from the original vote because according to the the comptroller's office and our resolution, we can have up to $5,000 in funds dispersed to any one person for this. I would apply the $1,778 to that balance as a running total in the year 2024, and I'll make that motion that we pay that under that special.
Need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Monthly reports. We got the clerks, the cold, the dog, and the
Are
supervisor.
we receiving and filing those?
Yes. We
Okay.
receive and file.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the Town of Homer Code Enforcement Report. The dog control report, a general supervisor's town general fund report for month ending July 31. All of these are July 31.
Did you say the clerks too?
Yes, clerks, supervisor, town, and dog.
Need a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, privilege of the floor. So, Mr. Perfetti, you can start us off.
I typed it up, Mike. I
Did you?
typed it up, okay, so you'll be good.
This will be my third go
Third
around.
time
This
he's
is-
ever been with us.
I'll make sure he's doing it right.
And maybe just for a little expedience sake, please take one each, pass it around. We'll do the same for the audience, because you can all have one of these. So my name's Tim Perfetti. I live here in Homer. As a matter of fact, I live right across the street. So why am I here tonight? For those of you who do not know, it was in the newspaper. It was on the radio. It was on our Cortland Voice. That I stepped down from a political post in Cortland County, because under public officers law, I had to. And I took a job with the Office of the New York State Comptroller. Okay. So now I'm not partisan. I'm a civilian again, and I'm loving it. Because the thing about our office is all the things that we're involved in. Okay. Who's heard of the comptroller, Tom DiNapoli? It's okay if you haven't heard of him. That's kind of good too, because this guy is low-key fire. All right? If you've never heard of the guy, even better. He is one of 6 statewide elected officials. One of 6. You have the governor, the lieutenant governor, the attorney general, 2 U.S. senators, and then there's Tom. And every time Tom has run since 2014, okay, in 2010 he did have a race, but it was kind of an open seat. But in 14, 18, and 22, Tom was the high vote getter of everybody on the ticket. And nobody's heard of the guy. That's a pretty good place to be, okay? So what does the comptroller do, right? Well, let me tell you, the reason I point out he's one of 6 elected officials, what's that mean? We answer to no one other than you, the taxpayer. You decide whether we keep our job or not. I've learned in the very short time that I've been with his office that the governor thinks otherwise. We have to remind the governor at times. We don't report to you, okay? We report to the taxpayer. By statute, Tom is the chief fiscal officer of the state of New York. He is the sole trustee, overseer of the New York State Pension Fund. And we also do New York State's local retirement funds. So anybody who's got a pension, you're doing okay. But something I mentioned to Tom once in my other life was he likes to lead in with the pension and how we're 103% fully funded. I said to him, Tom, there's a lot of people that don't have pensions. They kind of resent those that do have them, especially when he mentions that and the people who do have them kind of go, whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, you're lording it over people. So he pulled me aside and said, yeah, but here's what it means when we're over 100% funded. There is a benefit to the taxpayer because you get your bill that says, here's how much you're going to owe to the retirement system. If we're under 100% funded, say we're at 98%, who makes up the 2% difference? The municipality. And that's your tax dollars. Okay, so it is positive for everyone that we're over 100% fully funded. The other thing we do, and as Mike has heard me say, I'm the guy from the comptroller's office that when I walk through the door, you ought to smile. Because I am not the auditor, okay? I am front-facing, constituent services, community engagement, okay? My office is in Binghamton, although I've only been there once. Okay, because my attitude is if you want to be a good regional rep, the last place you ought to find me is my office, because then I'm not out on the street repping the boss. I would never ask you to come down there, okay, because it's a 40-mile drive, your gas, your time, good luck finding parking when you're down there. I mean, I have an office there. I don't even have a pass to the parking garage. And then to come get it, I'd have to come from my office to get you through security. I'm a believer that you got to go where people are. Okay? You don't have to come to me. My office, though, is on the 3rd floor of the state office building. LGSA, which is Local Government School Accountability. Those are the ones that tend to make municipalities purse a little bit when they walk through the door. We are not an arresting agency. That's not our function. As we know in towns, and we all believe in the citizen legislature, citizen government, you people are all working to make a better community, and you're doing it for low pay and not a lot of frills, right? But we also know that sometimes town clerks run for office because they think an extra $3,000 or $4,000 a year would be a nice supplement to their income. But when they get in, they then find out that municipal accounting is not like balancing your checkbook. So when we come in, we're just here literally to help you. Okay? We will give you procedures. It's really a training for clerks. And then we'll give you a plan of corrective action. Now, that being said, if it becomes criminal, that's a you problem. You did that. We didn't do it. And I give a couple of examples. The mayor of the village of Candor, right? Mike's heard this. This is about a month ago. Anybody read about this guy? Took $23,000 out of the general fund, is the mayor. He had a debit card to the general fund. He put 19 back, but that's not the point. Never should have touched it to begin with. There's a fire department up in Hannibal. Anybody hear about this one? This, again, was within the last month. Fire chief and his father somehow convinced the fire department that they should fund the building of a racetrack on land owned by the fire chief and his father. And this would all be fine because money that they made off ticket sales, the father and the son would keep, but then they would do raffles, and any monies made off the raffles would go back to the fire department. Right? How does all of this sounds great, doesn't it? Like, nobody saw this coming? And then what ended up happening was the father and son stopped paying back anything to the fire department. Never should have been done in the first place. Improper use of taxpayer dollars. Okay? And then 2 weeks ago, the village clerk in the town of Addison. Anyone hear about this? Oh, why do you look so serious? Okay.
She's a village clerk.
Village clerk in the town of Addison over 19 years took $1.1 million. $1.1 million. $1.1 million is about what Addison's budget is every year. For every dollar she took, she deprived the tax-paying public of a service. And we found it. She's 56 years old. She has a monthly pension. Her monthly pension was $1,900. Okay. This is the first public employee since a law was passed in 2011. And then there was a loophole in it. Shocking. We write laws that have loopholes in them, and then we got to go fix them and straighten it out. Got fixed in 2018. This is the first public employee that, as part of her plea, is forfeiting her pension. Now, that's not a deterrent. I'm not sure what is, because she's looking at 3 to 9. which means on the bright side, she's out at 59. On the back side, maybe she's out at 65. Good luck, right? Good luck. She's not going to have a lot on the other side. But again, nobody made her take the money. So if we get to that point, that is somebody who needs to do some self-reflection, but that is not going to be on the comptroller's office, okay? I'm not the tip of the spear on any of that. Understand that. I'm not out looking for it. I don't want to say I don't care, but that's not my function as the regional representative. But if somebody brings it to my attention, I am obligated to point them to LGSA in Binghamton, and then the wall definitely goes down between us, okay? Because LGSA may be auditing somebody that I'm courting, so our paths don't cross, okay? The other thing we do, and this one I love, because I gave it out here today, the unclaimed funds. Anybody ever go look to see if they have unclaimed funds with the state of New York? Did you have any? Did you? Good. So this is becoming like one of the most rewarding parts of my job, and I mean that. This is something that's so small, so simple, but it's a great feeling. And I can't say his name, but it is somebody in Homer. We did National Night Out last week. My mentor came down to help me. We had a tent up, and I was like a carnival barker. I wasn't letting anybody get by without trying. Right? Even if you said, well, I looked, so what? Look again, right? Let's look, let's check. I did that with this one individual, and because we all know who the person is, I know who he is, he had my private email. And he sent me a private message today thanking me for getting him to check. And it was only $35, but he got his check today. And that's cool. Right? Like that's one where just sometimes the smallest little victories make you think, wow, we can do something to help someone. And then I told a group last night that a woman came by. I put the hook on her. Her name wasn't in there, but she checked her husband, and his name was in there. And I said, well, go get him. Let's get this thing moving. She goes, well, I don't know if he'll behave. Her husband and I don't get along with one another. Now, don't let your minds wander. It's not that. We had a philosophical, political disagreement in a parking lot one afternoon, and he seems to have not forgotten about it. However, she texted my wife 2 days ago to say, tell Tim thanks. I got him to go on and look. It's a little less than $1,000 in an escrow account he forgot about. The check's on the way. Okay, so regardless of what my differences with the guy is, I don't care. He's getting $1,000. This is off. That's like being Santa Claus. Okay, we can chuckle, but it is one of the things you're like, this is kind of cool to be able to help people. Because I think one of the worst statements ever made was by a president who said, laughingly, that one of the worst things you could hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And I think that's BS. Because I think government can help people. And this is how we help them. It doesn't have to be the big sexy stuff. It doesn't have to be the slam dunk every day. But if you can help that person navigate government to get something that they're entitled to. Because I do get it. It's kind of scary, right? A lot of people don't understand government or how it works. My mother-in-law had her go on. She's got a check for $40. She said, oh, it was only $40. I said, Mom, that's not the point. The point is that you're $40. It's not a utility company's $40 because you forgot about a deposit. It's not a bank's money because you forgot about a Christmas club that you had when you were 13 years old. It's your money. We've been collecting this since 1940, unclaimed funds. We're sitting on $18 billion of unclaimed funds. We pay out about $1.5 million a day. Okay, so do check it out. If you find something and you're having trouble navigating the site, call me. You can go on the website. I don't have a business card for everybody. The state moves slowly. I still only have my temporary cards, and I'm running out of them. Okay, but if you go to the website and look up New York State Comptroller Regional Representative, then you'll see that I have the southern tier. Okay. The counties that I have, so I won't be here at every meeting, that you're having. I know you appreciate that because I get a little long-winded. I have Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Steuben, Chemung, Tioga, Schuyler, Broome County, Cortland County, Shenango, and Otsego. Okay. So, you can find me. And it's kind of good for you in Homer, in Cortland County. Because I asked a group last night, before me, did you know who your representative for Tom DiNapoli was? Exactly. And that's not to besmirch that individual. We're all allowed to come at this from a different perspective. And my perspective is this. When you're going fishing, you got to go where the fish are, right? That's why I'm willing to do the unclaimed funds events on Saturdays. At no extra, I don't get paid extra. I'm salary. Okay? And if I do 4 hours on a Saturday and 4 hours on a Sunday, I'm not allowed to say I'm taking Wednesday off because government's opened on Wednesdays. But I got to go where you people are because that's how we're going to get you your money. All right? And then something else more for the board would be we have a division called BPA, Budget Policy Analysis. That's worth going to take a look at. It's got you can put in search words where we will take a topic, an issue, something, and we'll spend time doing research on it. That'll take sometimes 2 to 3 years, okay? One of the things they want to put together is a rural roundtable. We did a report on it. We picked 10 counties. And the funny thing is, I read it was this. These are all things we know. We inherently know them because we live here. Okay. Would it surprise anybody that we have poor public transportation in rural New York? Right? We know that because we live here. But the report even got down so detailed as to, in these 10 counties, what percentage of people don't have access to a personal vehicle to get to and from work? Okay, we've got a problem. We do the telemedicine. We would like more telemedicine. Right here, we've got Family Health Network. That part of their mission is to get health care out into rural New York. Okay, but again, we know these things because we live here. But because we're not a legislative body, the comptroller is not legislative. All we can do is write the report and give the report to the legislature. Now, there's a saying. When you build a horse by committee, what do you get? A camel. So once we present the report to the legislature and all the horse trading starts with downstaters and people of varying different political ideologies, it ends up getting watered down. But that doesn't mean you as a local community can't take some of those things in our BPA reports and maybe say, you know what, there's a way we could kind of microcosm that right down to what we do in our own community. And we are also encouraged as reps to think of reports we can do. So if you've got an idea, you wake up at 1 a.m. with an idea, jot it down on a notepad. Call me the next day. We'll start talking about it because the boss loves to see when we generate ideas for reports. Okay, so I touched on all the big things. Does anybody have any questions? Good. Kevin? No questions? You're going to get to, you're meeting a new Tim now.
I was okay with the old one.
I said to Donna Lapardo, I said, you're gonna get to know the quiet Tim now. And she looked at me and I said, yeah, I'm no longer allowed to have an opinion. Every day I call the boss and say, Tom, what's your opinion today? And that's what my opinion ends up being. But I do believe we're here to help. And I mean that. Okay. And it is a benefit to Cortland that your rep lives in Cortland. Because you'll have better unfettered access. Oh, one thing I didn't tell you. Sorry, and then I'll be done. Theoretically, or ideally, any business you think you've got with the comptroller's office, I should be your first point of contact. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. I'm not here just to talk to these guys. I work for you too. Okay? I work for all of you. And as I said, I get paid the same whether I'm fighting or whether I'm marching. So make me earn my pay. All right? But here's the thing. Why should I be your first point of contact? If you go to our website and you want to take an opinion of, I don't like Tim, so I'm not going to deal with it. And the one guy I thought would say that just said he liked the old Tim too. So if somebody took that posture, I just don't want to deal with Tim. He's a political hack. Okay, go ahead. The website's going to tell you 7 to 14 business days. Okay. As of today, I can add one. I've got 9 constituent services that I've had all of them buttoned up within 48 to 72 hours. Why? Because chances are, look, you want to call Albany, talk to a voice automated messaging machine, knock yourself out. I've got the person's cell phone number. Or I've got the ability through this thing called Teams. Have you heard of Teams? No. You've heard of that, haven't you? Teams? So like everybody can just send each other a direct message. I'm not a troglodyte, okay, or a Luddite, but I'm just like, I got a request at 5 after 4 on a Friday. I sent it right to the individual who needed to have it. He's the guy who can answer the pension questions. I had no expectations about when he would get back to me. Woke up Monday morning, turned my computer on. At 10 after 8, the answer came in. Here's the answer to the person's question. Wasn't the answer they wanted. Okay. The answer is not always going to be yes. But if I can get you the answer quicker, then you can better start planning your next steps as to what you may or may not want to do. Okay. So that's why you should call me. We can cut through a lot of red tape if you go through your regional representative. All right? So with that, I'm just going to take that and hand something out to everybody, and then I appreciate your time, and you can find me anywhere. I live, like I said, across the street.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else for the privilege of the floor?
I'd like to speak.
Okay.
I'm Bridget Salini. I live in Homer, New York, and I'd like to read a letter to you into the official record. This is from Scenic America. To the Town Board of Homer, New York, I am writing to you as the president of Scenic America, the nation's only 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated solely to the promotion, preservation, and protection of America's scenic beauty. In our over 40 years of operation, we have been on the forefront of advocacy and education for many issues that directly affect the beauty and character of our communities. We have built a reputation as an organization that can quickly and effectively organize and activate a motivated group of supporters for or against issues of importance. One of these key issues, an issue that we have taken all the way to the Supreme Court, is the matter of outdoor advertising. Billboards, both digital and static, as well as those smart cities and wayfinding kiosks that are proliferating under the guise of innovation and ad revenue, are a blight on our communities and introduce threats to the safety of ourselves and our surroundings. We have been following the development of the controversial electronic billboards proposed for Homer, which has sparked significant public outcry and legal scrutiny due to its potential violations of town regulations and community standards. This proposal has raised alarms not only because of the impact on the valley's natural beauty, historic landscape, and dark skies, but also because it sets a concerning precedent for future developments in Homer. We are aware that Homer currently does not allow for any off-premise signs and that the town board would have to change zoning laws to govern such installations. Therefore, these proposed billboards should not be approved.
Radio and alt-right TV.
If allowed to proceed, these billboards and potentially others like them could undermine these legal protections, setting a dangerous precedent for non-compliance with established regulations and community standards. There are also serious concerns about potential conflicts of interest within the town board, which has understandably led to frustration among residents regarding corruption in local government. Specifically, Town Supervisor Michael Park owns land that, pending these zoning changes, would be able to host a billboard, a blatant conflict of interest. Additionally, Deputy Supervisor Barry Warren has a 40-year business relationship with a landowner that wants the first 4 billboards in Little York. If the town board continues with this plan to change zoning laws to allow these billboards to be erected, Scenic America will not hesitate to contact the New York Comptroller directly. Public opposition to these billboards has been evident and should be respected. Miles Nugent of Homer, along with more than 25 other residences, demonstrated their opposition to the billboards at a recent meeting of the town board emphasizing the importance of the dark sky for both personal and community inspiration. Residents like Stephanie Spina have expressed concerns about the safety, aesthetics, and energy consumption associated with electronic billboards. It is evident that while billboards may benefit the companies advertising on them and the property owners hosting them, the broader community bears the cost and sees little to no benefit. To emphasize the importance of preventing billboard proliferation, we would like to present the following scientific facts and evidence regarding the impacts of outdoor advertising. Number 1, driver and pedestrian safety. Numerous geospatial and neuroscience studies have shown that billboards, especially digital billboards, create distractions for drivers and lead to traffic accidents. A 2020 review of 27 independent studies found that outdoor advertising signs are designed specifically to grab drivers' attention and divert it away from the roadway, contributing to distraction from both the road and pedestrians ahead. This was especially evident in inclement weather, difficult road patterns and intersections, at higher speeds, abrupt traffic changes, and when signs are more visually dramatic. Roads and communities without these distractions are much safer and more secure for residents and visitors. Number 2, environmental degradation. Billboards require a large consumption of materials as well as the removal of trees and vegetation. Digital signs leave a large carbon footprint with their electronic requirements. Studies indicate that an illuminated billboard can consume over 7,000 kilowatt hours annually, and a single LED billboard can consume nearly 163,000 kilowatt hours annually. For comparison, the average annual consumption of a home in the United States is over 11,000 kilowatt hours. LED signs and billboards contribute to high levels of light pollution with health impacts to humans, such as circadian rhythm disruption, as well as interference of nocturnal animal migration, movement, and foraging. Fewer billboards leads to a reduction in resource consumption, waste production, and the energy required for maintenance, contributing to environmental sustainability. And point number 3, socioeconomic implications. Billboards and other forms of outdoor advertising are economic burdens for cities and communities. They contribute to regulatory and maintenance costs, decreased property values, and the loss of tourism revenue. It is a common misconception that billboards are economically advantageous to cities, as off-premises advertising primarily benefits large companies with minimal direct economic contributions to local businesses. Additionally, billboards that increase visual blight have been shown to reduce adjacent property values, especially in areas with historically marginalized people. Cities may also incur costs associated with regulating the placement and maintenance of billboards, including the enforcement of zoning laws and sign ordinances. Conversely, tourism has been shown to increase in cities and states that have banned billboards, as community beautification increases commercial desirability. 4, aesthetics and community character. One of the most apparent impacts that billboards have on communities is the immediate decline of visual appeal. Billboards, often large and imposing, can dominate the landscape and distract from the natural beauty of the surroundings. The elimination of billboards creates a cleaner visual environment, making it easier for residents and visitors to appreciate the city's architectural, cultural, and natural assets without the distraction of numerous advertising signs. We, nor the research, cannot be clearer. Adding billboards benefits only the outdoor advertising companies that own them and does more harm than good for the communities that allow them. As the town board prepares to hold future public hearings on this issue, we urge you to consider the overwhelming opposition from residents and the potential negative impacts on Homer's landscape, community values, and ethical fabric. Preserving the natural beauty and dark skies of your town is paramount to ensuring the scenic, cultural, and historical context that makes Homer what it is, and allowing these billboards would be a huge step in the wrong direction. If you have any questions or would like additional information, please do not hesitate to reach out to Mark Pelzone at scenic.org, and I'll leave the letter here so you have it for the official record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else privilege of the floor? Solar?
Yeah.
No, I got you the time slot, so you gotta
Oh, sorry.
leave. No problem. Yeah. All right.
Yes, Mayor Beaudry, 37 North Main Street. The one thing not talked about is There's a huge, huge financial risk to not only Mr. Pathos, but the company that makes these things, along with our village and our town, in the event of a distracted bus driver, and God forbid 60 college students, high school students, or senior citizens traveling through the community wipe out. How large an indemnification does Mr. Pathos and the billboard company have to give to all of us as taxpayers? And you as board members, you guys are probably going to get pensions because a lot of you guys have been on the board a long time. You may lose your pensions for making a malfeasance type zoning change. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else further to the floor? Okay, moving on. Martin Sweeney, town historian, got some good,
I see according to the agenda that Heather and Brooke put it down as Esther Tallman Resurrection painting. Well, we weren't able to resurrect Esther Tallman, but we were able to resurrect a painting by a Homer native son of the late Esther Tallman. This is the painting. The lighting is terrible, so it looks as if you didn't get your money's worth, but I assure you, you did. As the board will recall, it was back in March when the board approved delivery of this portrait by Francis Bicknell Carpenter from Homer to Westlake Conservators. This painting was for treatment, so it might last for another 175 years. It's an investment in our heritage. Took them 5 months to complete the project. So here we are. I retrieved it on July 23rd. Paid for it. It's all set to go. I'll point out for those who may not be too familiar as the board is that Carpenter, born in Homer, just up the road a ways, was probably about 19 years old when he painted this. This is the same man who will go on when he's like 54 to paint President Lincoln in the iconic painting of the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation before the cabinet, done in 1864 during 6 months he spent in the White House. This was oil on canvas soon after Esther Tallman's death in 1849 at age 30. We suspect that when Carpenter painted it, he did so next door in a building that's been removed so that you could have outdoor eating at the exchange. The building could not be resurrected. The town received this from Thomas Winter of Loma Linda, California. His dying wish at age 93 is that it be donated to the town that was the birthplace of Carpenter. It took a while, but we managed to get it. The gentleman was, by his calculation, 8 genealogical steps removed from Homer's first permanent merchant, Jedediah Barber. Tallman is related to Barber through marriage, and it's through the Tallman lineage that this man ended up with a painting that found its way across the continent, across geography, across time, from 1840s until 2022. Found its way back here. It needed to have some work done. Amazingly, though, the painting that has survived this was so well cherished by the family as an heirloom that it was only minimal damage that they came across. You would expect more for something that's 175 years old. And Carpenter painted a goodly number of portraits of deceased individuals in his day because that was a standard practice, a way to memorialize the departed loved ones. Now, I believe the board has received copies of the treatment plan showing before and after paintings, before and after descriptions of what it was they received and what it was that they did. I don't intend to go into it all, but everything on the document has also been placed on a flash drive, which I will place in my office. You always have access to it, even if you don't have hard copies of what the work was done. I'm going to point out a few salient points because before they packaged it up for me to bring back home, I said, well, I should explain some of the more challenging things that you had to deal with here in layman's language. There was right out here a distortion in the canvas of a bulge. What they were able to do, risky business it seems like, but I guess they're the experts. They apply heat and then put on weights, and as it cools, it shrinks back into place. And there's what's called a stretcher on the back of the canvas, and they had to stretch it some more to give it what they call planarity, flatness. I asked about, and I'm not quite sure where it is, I think it's right about here. I had found a pinhole, and it's not there anymore. They filled it in. They increased tension in the stretcher just moderately, and they removed the pinhole. They installed a protective backing on the reverse side of the artwork. And they were able to bring out some features that you can't see from where you are. They were able to bring out one particular feature. If you stand up to the side especially, you can see a black, I'm going to call it a halo back here across the top of her head, probably the edge of a bonnet she was wearing. That wasn't visible before. That was brought out because they cleaned it all up. You need a bath after 175 years of being dirty too. Cleaned it all up. The worst part of the whole thing was the frame. Now, Dave Quinlan of Homer maintains that this is an original frame, very typical of what Carpenter used for his frames. Westlake wasn't so certain. They don't know if it's the original or a replacement, but they said, quote unquote, the most ornate frame we've ever had come through here. It was in bad shape. If you look at the photographs and so forth, you'll notice that there were hunks of ornamentation that were missing. Delicate stuff. So it's neat because what they did is, I think it's down here. This piece had to be replaced. What they did is they made a mold over here, mirror image, and then were able to replace it with putty of sorts, art type putty, and it's back looking fabulous. It's incredible. All the ornateness. And there's one piece that was really challenging because some of it, you can almost see here, is three-dimensional. It does not adhere back. It's out. It's 3D. And to replicate that was a challenge. But they were able to work a miracle, as I see it. So they created silicone molds of the missing areas. They recast it using a putty, and they were able to tone it again and get it cleaned up. They put new installation hardware on the back and some kind of a very thin material so that the frame does not touch the canvas itself and can't cause further abrasion, of which there was some. So that's the miracle that they worked, and again, we've got the documents that show you before and after. And if you have any questions either from the board or from the audience, now's the time to ask. If I know the answer, I'll tell you, and if I don't, I'll tell you don't know.
How many paintings does Homer own now of Carpenter?
Last count, I think it's 23. We had to part with one. There was one at the Center for the Arts, but they had to go back to a church in Poughkeepsie. Okay, so we have 23 or 24. And I just received last week a written letter from a woman not too far from where we live to expect she will donate 2 more Carpenter portraits of a married couple from the 1840s.
Oh.
Where you're going to put them, Who knows? But you're going to do some renovation, I understand, down here.
Absolutely.
I know you didn't plan on becoming a museum, but neither do I want to be a curator
Okay.
of a museum. I just want to be a historian of it. It's amazing the stuff that comes your way. People say, where do you find this stuff? I don't. It finds me. Okay? So again, I thank the board for supporting the idea of preserving historical artifacts that we have inherited, and I hope that you will also do the same at preserving our environment and our dark skies over Homer along I-81.
Thank you, Martin. We're very fortunate to have Martin and all the effort he puts into this preservation. If you take a tour upstairs, you can see the displays he has. He come in the other day and put a new map up in our boardroom. And he's always looking for spots. Can I put something here? So we're running out of wall spaces. And I don't know if down here, this is going to hopefully be the police department on this side. We'll have a community room on that side. So we may have to put an addition on it to keep getting artifacts. But we'll look at that in the future. But again, we thank you.
But that painting will go back upstairs
Yeah.
to the right of the stage, and go better lighting, and you'll get a better look at what we've got, and you can see here.
Well, we appreciate your efforts on that. Really outstanding.
Appreciate yours.
Oh, let's see here. John Phelps is not here. Did you have any update, Caleb, from John?
No.
Okay, I got a quick one from him tonight. Our new Dodge truck is in, but no box, so we're waiting on a box. We should be in good shape for winter once the dump box goes on it and plow. That was that. Dodge, I think 550 to replace one of the aging ones. So that's going good. Other than that, he said the town's in very good shape. They're well caught up on all their work, taking care of some emergency or some stuff on Wolf Road, a few other roads around that they took care of. The guys are taking their vacation time. They've been helping out all the other municipalities because they have a work shared agreement. He says they're in great shape there. They helped the city of Cortland, and they were able to replenish our stockpile of grindings, which saves us a tremendous amount of money. So they are cruising right along, but and he did say now they're really gearing up, going to be gearing up for winter. I hate the thought of that, but we're fast approaching that time of year again. So that's where he left things, and so highway is looking good. Clerks, any updates for us?
DEC started where we're selling hunting licenses at a decent rate. People have comments about the new state paper that they're being handed, but everyone seems to be taking it well. The book lays out a lot of the changes, so that was super helpful. And Brooke and I have just been chipping away at our to-do lists and hoping that it gets smaller.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks. We're trying.
I keep bringing him stuff. I don't want to see him get bored. So with that, the next part of this is going to be our part-time clerk. We've been talking about this for the last 4 or 5 months. We finally got a job description, and we want to get that approved. We know the board told us to go ahead and move forward with that. So we're putting in a completed job description and funding, and we want to get this position hired. Love to see a position filled. What are we in now? August, by the 1st of September, to start getting them trained. I mean, the way the year is going by, they need the help. So with that, the deputy town clerk position, you have that in front of you? Mm-hmm. Would one of you ladies read that, please, and we'll go through it real quick.
Distinguishing features of the class. We basically got this from Portland County's website. So we changed a few things, but
Right, it fulfills our needs.
yes. This is routine clerical work involving responsibility for performing a variety of unrelated tasks in connection with the proceedings of the town board and the operation of town government. Work is performed under the general direction of the town clerk with some leeway for the use of independent judgment in carrying out details of the work. Typical work activities: assumes the duties of the town clerk during the absence of or at the pleasure of the town clerk. Prepares material for meetings of the town board. may attend meetings, records proceedings, and maintains records, indexes and files deeds, contracts, insurance policies, and other legal instruments, issues state and town license and permits such as hunting and fishing, marriage dog license, etc. Answers questions for public concerning procedures of the town clerk's office and provides information about ordinances adopted by the town board. Checks vouchers and invoices for accuracy and completeness. Keeps accounts and prepares reports pertaining to monies received. Full performance knowledges, skills, abilities, and personal characteristics. A working knowledge of office terminology, procedures, and equipment. Working and knowledge of the organization and operation of town government. Working knowledge of business, arithmetic, and English. Ability to maintain records and prepare reports. Ability to deal efficiently with the public. Clerical aptitude, accuracy, dependability, and good physical condition. Minimum qualifications. Since the position of deputy town clerk is in the exempt class, there are no minimum requirements. However, it is suggested that the appointees be high school graduates and have had at least 1 year of satisfactory clerical experience.
So Heather, I need a clarification up here. It says marriage peddler.
That's you have the old one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's a peddler? Marriage peddler?
The village actually does that.
Oh,
So
okay.
when people come to basically sell door to door, they have to sign a certificate with the village clerk that they're allowed to do it.
So you're peddling licenses? Is that?
We
took that out.
Yeah, we took it out
Okay.
because that's not us.
Just a little bit. So part of this, they worked hard on it. We worked hard on it. So part of it, we have meetings with Kevin. Kevin, our code enforcement, needs help doing a lot of filing. This position, we decided to make it very broad based, but they're going to have specific duties. And then if one of the ladies going on vacation gets sick, life happens. Like it did last year, and we were short for almost a month, down to one clerk on a busy season. So this gives them some backup. But also our hours are planning on being, what were the hours again, 10 to 2?
10 to 2, Monday through Thursday.
So it's a part-time position. We're looking at paying it $18 to $20 an hour. So that is so what we're going to need is a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion on this. Does anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion now. Any discussions on this? Questions? Ask. Everybody good?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So, no, I'm good with that.
There's a lot of catch up to do, so we're looking excited about this, to stuff that they can't get to. I mean, you come into our office, and I'm not saying, I just let the general public know. These ladies are busy every minute. I mean, you come in there, they never stop working, and there's a lot of filing. Kevin needs a lot of help with filing to get him caught up. We're trying to rearrange our records and everything to make it more user-friendly. So that's what we envision this person starting right out of the gate to help us get organized, and then the responsibilities. So with that, if there's no other questions, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Solar presentation.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I have PowerPoint. Do you mind passing that down? And then we can give it a second here. I'm Jonathan Gelbar, project developer with UDF Renewables, the project manager for Homework Solar Energy Center. So I'm here tonight to give a brief update. It's been a few years since there's been a lot of activity there. I'll describe some of what we've been working on in the background. And what we're going to look forward to in the future, and happy to answer questions. This PowerPoint is just to kind of help guide the conversation, but if you have any questions, just pop up and I'll help out. Okay. The main reason that kind of brought me in here is I reached out to Supervisor Park about just giving him notification that we are bidding the project. He's asked me to come down and provide this update. But what is it that the project's being bid into, right? So just to give a really brief context, the state, through several iterative legislative provisions and acts, they've always had goals for how much renewable electricity they want to have across the whole state. And it's gotten, the most recent is the Community Leadership Community Protection Act, which established the pretty common, maybe you've heard of it, the 70% renewable electricity by 2030, commonly heard like 70 by 30. There's also another one, it's 100% carbon-free electricity by 2050. So there's a couple levels of goals, and as part of that, the state is looking to work with developers such as EDF, AES, and other companies you might have heard to develop projects that generate renewable electricity, and they do that by essentially offering what they call contract solicitations, and with it they basically give awards. And it's essentially a power purchase agreement for renewable energy credits. So for every megawatt hour of clean energy, the state buys a megawatt of renewable energy credits that then get distributed to utilities and other organizations to help offset some of their other carbon emissions as well. So this has been in the works for, I want to say like 15, 20 years, but it's really gained a lot of momentum recently with that CLCPA Act I mentioned. And back in 2020, as part of the annual solicitations that NYSERDA does, where they're looking for projects to bid in, provide information about the projects, and then the economics of what the cost is for renewable energy credits. They award projects that are competitive, and then each year that they're always looking for a certain volume. Essentially, Homer actually won an award back in 2020. They're one of the earlier ones of the size that we're talking about. So. That was really exciting. We were able to then, go full bore forward ahead. From 2020 to 21, 22, we spent all our efforts then at that point performing the field surveys and studies to define the environmental resources in the project area, so that we can then use that to design the facility layout to minimize and avoid impacts as much as possible. Any impacts that couldn't be avoided are then mitigated through a permitting process. The permit application is quite lengthy, so all those studies and designs are all prerequisites, as you're familiar with probably SECRA. Very similar type aspect where we have to define every aspect of the facility, from noise to visual to wetland impacts, earth disturbance, etc. And that all went into an application that we refer to as 94C, because previously, until just recently, it was in the Executive Code Law, Section 94C. So that's what essentially established the Office of Renewable Energy Siting, who is the state agency that reviewed the permit. And in January 2023, the Homer Solar Energy Project received a certificate approving the siting of the solar facility. In that time frame between 2021 award, 2023 when we got our permit to then begin construction, we've all experienced the global issues that kind of occurred, right? We went through COVID together, we've all saw the inflationary pressures, at the grocery store. But there's also supply chain disruptions. Suez Canal is pretty commonly thought of with that, but when the industry is really kind of going through a pretty large momentum push for renewable energy, not just in New York, but across the country, across the globe. So a lot of the common materials that all these companies and projects are looking for, they saw a little bit more inflation than even what we experienced just kind of in our day-to-day lives. So a lot of projects became uneconomical. So ACE New York, it stands for Accelerated Clean Energy New York. They're a trade organization that represents renewable energy projects in New York. They compiled a petition and submitted it to the New York State Public Service Commission, basically saying, hey, there's a lot of contracts that have received and won awards. They're not economical anymore. We're just looking for an inflation adjustment. Inflation pressures is really the sole reason for this. And in October 2023, the PSC denied performing any type of, contract adjustments to existing contracts. What they favored was a competitive process. They basically said that's a key pillar stone of New York, and no two projects are the same. They don't need the same adjustment. So doing a uniform adjustment wouldn't be applicable or appropriate, and as well, like, we want to have the opportunity to competitively select which projects get a new price. So they directed NYSERDA to essentially host special procurements to, and well, first, let me back up. They directed NYSERDA to allow projects to cancel their contracts without penalty, and then host special procurements to essentially resubmit new prices, new project information, in an effort to win another award competitively across everyone else. So after that was received, 90% of projects that had contracts ended up taking the option to cancel their contracts in the hopes of participating in procurements and getting a new project. So here we are in 2024. We're now in our second special procurement. The first one initiated in January, which Homer Solar was submitted and participated in. It concluded in April. We did not receive an award. And now the second one is ongoing. We actually just submitted it last week, which is why I reached out to you to kind of give you a notice. And we feel much better. We made a few adjustments. We feel we're much more competitive. We included some things that NYSERDA likes, such as like sheep grazing, so we can, have a little bit more of a, ecosystem approach for the vegetation management and some other items as well. And we sharpened our fences. So we expect to hear about award notifications at the end of September, as the state is really pushing to try to catch back up so that they can get projects that have canceled back in the queue and moving towards these goals that we have in law. So that's a real quick summary of renewable energy contracts, where we are, and why the Homer Solar project is currently rebidding, even though we won a few years ago. So any questions before I do some project review stuff?
Can you tell us exactly where the location of this is?
Yeah, this is up on Parks Road, over by where the landfill is. So much of the solar arrays, it's for those in the audience here, it's a pretty distributed and broken up solar array. So it's a 90 megawatt project. It spans on about 600 acres of fenced arrays, but we're breaking it up into about 6 or 7 different arrays. So it's much smaller. It's no real large contiguous piece of it. And they're at the top of a lot of the hills up there. As you know, the landfill, you have to go up that huge hill. I don't know how the trucks make it, but they do. To get up the hill. So we're really set up top of there, which really helps to reduce the visual impact to the surrounding community at large. We're tucked behind a lot of the vegetation. We're trying to keep a lot of the trees up to help, hide it from view. And that's where the project is.
It's basically going to be in Homer, Cortlandville, and Solon?
Yes. Yes. So that's a span across 3. It's about 45% split between Homer and Cortlandville, and then there's the remaining 10% in the town of Solon.
Okay.
Thank you. General construction, general schedule, winning this award would be really key so we can move forward. And what we would see is an anticipating start of construction would be as early as late 2026, December timeframe. Perform some tree clearing to avoid impacts to bat species. We can only clear between November and March. So we're going to be targeting that for our tree clearing. And then that gives us the summer construction season of 27 to work through construction so we can become operational, hopefully by the end of 27, but no later than quarter 2, 2028. So the next here is just kind of an overview. I kind of touched upon a lot of this, how long we've been in this area since 2018 when we acquired the interconnection position with the grid from a prior developer who was trying to do a wind project. We worked with landowners, did all the land agreements, we received the contract, and we worked through the field studies, and a lot of that was in 2021, 2022, the field studies, getting our permit. All of 2023 was basically, or all of 2022 was the permit review process. It's a lengthy process. It took us about, go home, it took us about 10 months to get through from application submittal to getting that certificate. And we're not done yet. As I'll review a little bit later, there's a list of requirements of compliance filings is what we call them, but we have to submit our construction design, we have to submit operational plans, safety response plans, vegetation management plans. A lot of things that were included in the permanent draft form, but we have to submit them to the agencies and some to the municipality here for review and approval before we're even allowed to start construction. So there's still a lot of work between here and when we'll be out there putting shovel in the ground. Okay. We're pretty excited. The next slide just kind of talks about some of the project benefits we are excited about. As we're kind of getting a better understanding of what the economics are for the project, we're seeing that we're going to be providing more than $18 million in direct payments in the first 20 years to Portland County, the 3 towns, so it's Portlandville, Homer, Solon, as well as the associated school districts through our pilot or anticipated pilot, post-community agreement, and any special district taxes. Construction is going to be a union project, so we're forecasting about 150 union employees on site to construct the facility, which are going to provide a lot of opportunities locally for services and vendors. We'll work, in advance with the community to identify, a service list that we'll provide to our contractors. So the food, the cleaning services, all the different things that a contractor is going to need to facilitate operating and constructing the site, as well as during when we're actually running the project as well. And someone earlier, she's left already, but she mentioned, how much energy does the house use? I think it was 1,100 kilowatt hours in a year, 11,000 kilowatt hours in a year. So this project at 90 megawatts will generate enough electricity to power 25,000 homes in a single year.
Can power billboard?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. And then, it's another thing that we're pretty proud of is that this is just something that we at EDF do with all of our projects. We call it the Sharing the Sun Fund. But we have budgeted $30,000 per year for the first 10 years that will just be available for community grants, donations, and everything. The way we expect that to be distributed is getting a contingent of community members that are willing to participate and solicit input and solicit applications and help to decide where that money should be spent. So it would be a community-led and community-run distribution of that grant money. Some more benefits that we've already, participated in is donations to this CNY Bright Ideas programs. We've been providing scholarships to local high school as well as to, anyone that's interested for renewable energy and going into trades. We have donations to the Arts Homer Center for the Arts Festival, and also as well to Lime Hollow Nature Center, which actually is pretty cool. So those are just some donations we've done just kind of through the way so we can try to integrate, us as an organization to the community, recognizing that we are working together. So I'm just going to go real quick into the permitting process a little bit more. So the 94C, I won't spend a lot of detail, but it's here, is now has been moved. Okay, so when the Climate Leadership Community Correction Act created 94C in executive law, it was a temporary space. So now, with the most recent state budget in June, they actually moved it to the Department of Public Service, who basically permits utility projects, transmission lines, pipelines, all that stuff. So now it's a lot more contiguous for an agency that existed to permit energy sites. Now it's moved in there and it's been retitled Article 8. So just as an FYI, if you hear Article 8, that is now renewable energy siting and transmission line permitting. It's been combined with transmission lines. So just a little tidbit there. This kind of talks about a lot of things I think I touched upon, which is really just a lot of proactive development studies to get into the application so that during the permit review, a lot of that's defined already. Going forward, I mentioned these compliance filings. I just wanted to give a heads up. So, what are we looking forward to the future? A lot of 2025 is going to be spent finalizing our construction design, developing our compliance filings that need to be, provided, reviewed, and approved in order for us to start construction. Working on finalizing or submitting a pilot application to the Portland County IDA. Working on establishing draft post-community agreements and negotiating that with the 3 towns, and also using the construction design that lets us establish the road use agreements so we can make sure our curb cuts are done within spec, the protection, safety during deliveries and construction is also ensuring the roads aren't being damaged, and that we're doing everything in a safe way for the community. 2026 will see us really getting a lot of those reviews and approvals being submitted, conducted, and stamped off. so that we can, hit that tree clearing window I mentioned at the end of 2026 to start our construction, and then, go through for trying to hit the construction season in 27. So down here, just for your benefit, this is the process. We file something, ORES can take 60 days to review. Then there's, deficiencies. We respond, there's another 60 days. The next slide kind of outlines just a few of these. If you're interested to take a closer look at them, they involve everything from unanticipated discovery plans of cultural or archaeological artifacts to complaint management plans, which have to be established, and we have to have phone numbers to contact people in case there's community complaint with how construction is being progressed. A final decommissioning and restoration plan. So at the end of our project life, which is at 39 years, we actually have a bond put in place before we start construction, and that is essentially to cover the cost to completely remove the facility that's held in the town's names. The state has access to it too, but it's held in the town's names. And so that is reevaluated, but that's a final decommissioning plan. That's one of the compliance filings we have to have in, as well as some other like vegetation management plans and operational plans. I mentioned safety, it's a big one too. So why is that important? Well, the municipality does get involved in some of the review of those. So the next slide kind of outlines that, which is, we talked about the host community agreement. That's a key one. So in that has some provisions for obviously how we're going to pay, some direct payments to ensure that the community is being compensated for hosting the project, but also includes code enforcement monitors. So you can hire a third-party code enforcement officer to come out to the site and perform inspections of various components that relate to building code or potentially the fire code, which are within the town's jurisdiction for oversight. Dispute resolutions, other things like that. You want to get a lot of that figured out before you get into a dispute. Exemptions of fire codes, another thing. We've talked to the fire chiefs during the permit application, but as we do our construction design, they'd be involved on the development design to ensure our access roads provide safe access, emergency ingress, egress, all the things that they're going to be looking for. Vegetation management plan is also something that the town will have a review and approval on from a visual screening aspect. So the vegetation management plan includes the landscape of a lot of the visual screening that we have included in the permit. And then the road use agreement. So those are some aspects where the municipality will be involved, both leading up to and through construction of the facility. So it's a good thing to kind of review here. And then, just to kind of like really lead off of that, we'll host pre-construction meetings that'll be available to the public. We'll talk about our construction plan, our detailed schedule, our access routes, delivery routes, and things. During construction, we'll host, community quarterly newsletters that we mail to adjacent homes or a certain radius. Newspaper postings. We'll have a website, some emails and stuff. We'll do updates during construction, and then reports. So we'll be performing a lot of reports as the basis of our, state permit, and we'll be summarizing those reports and providing them to the municipality and community as well. So that's the Homer Solar Project. How we got here today and where our hopes are to go forward. Any other questions or thoughts?
Can I ask a handful of interesting questions?
What's that?
Can I ask a handful of interesting
As long as it's not too long, we got a lot of business to do yet tonight, or you two can talk privately.
So first of all, I'm totally in favor of solar energy, totally. It will be the energy of the future. I just want it to be done right. So these are things to get it done right. First of all, when somebody tells me that they're going to cut down trees to put in solar panels, I just wince. That's how we get our oxygen and process carbon dioxide, but that's a whole separate issue. So first, can you tell us briefly what's the difference between the old NYSERDA contract and the new one? How much more are you getting?
Well, we haven't won a contract yet, but it involves obviously an escalation that's representing what the new material costs are, the new labor provisions.
But you don't know the numbers.
I know the numbers, but obviously can't reveal them.
Okay, just curious. Second, upstate New York is 92% carbon-free energy right now. So the real gain from this is to send the energy down to New York City, which kind of leaves us out in the cold. But the federal line runs into congestion and can't really send it to New York City. So basically what happens with this energy, it just goes to recycle energy we already have. But since it's 92% carbon free, the only energy that we need to fix is at night or in the rain. So when he says 25,000 homes get electricity, it's actually 0 homes get electricity at night, 0 get it in the rain, 0 when there's ice, because there's no energy storage. So the original program on the first page many years ago said plenty of energy storage, but now that's all disappeared. I understand it's disappeared for cost reasons, but that's not enough justification. They should wait the short amount of time until battery costs, not lithium batteries, better technologies come out and then do it. But I don't think they're gonna. Just from our point of view, we really need energy storage. Next question, IDA. Is the IDA aware of everything you've said to us?
Well, I don't think they're here, but I have been working with the IDA for multiple years,
Okay,
negotiating for the project.
So what happened is, remember the charts I had long ago that had what the taxes should be and the kind of taxes they would actually pay? Now they're down to taxes like this because times have changed. And there's no reason to give them a discount. They can afford it. But the IDA, for reasons I don't understand, gives a greater discount. And what happens if they don't negotiate a contract with the IDA, you're opting out and the county opting out means just the regular taxes are paid, which is all New York State allows us. But the school district has never opted out. So should their negotiations with the IDA fail, the school district receives $0.00. And that happens in real life. And then the total taxes they pay are even less. So I've tried many times and they've not really responded. It's important for the school district to opt out before any of the clocks stop ticking and they're not protected as this goes on. And the last question is the government of France. If you look at their ownership, there are multiple companies across multiple countries, and eventually now it's owned 100% by the government of France because EDF, their parent, screwed up all the nuclear power plants and the government had to take it over to save it. So I wonder, and I'm surprised, why the government of France wants to own a solar project in Homer and Portland. My feeling is as soon as they get through the approval stage, it'll just be sold. Government of France is not in this business, and it'll be a whole new company you're dealing with. So they're pretty honest and straightforward, and I appreciate the things they say and how they work, but we don't know what the next company would be like. So just thoughts. Be glad to discuss them with anybody at any time. Thank you.
Thanks for your questions.
Any other questions we appreciate your time and updating us on that. We know New York State is, the local authorities taking everything away from us and we get what we get.
Well, there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate as we go forward.
We appreciate that, yeah. We'd like to see that stuff because it is our community.
Of course.
Okay, well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, code enforcement, Kevin and Dan. So this is what we have to have a public hearing for. So I guess, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we talked about this in quite a bit of detail last month, but so the board's considering adoption of the local law to deal with unsafe structures and properties in the town. In a nutshell, the law gives Mr. McMahon's office and the town board a mechanism to deal with what it comes down to mostly is property owners who are absentee and are non-responsive. It gives the town board and Kevin an opportunity to deal with those unsafe situations, whether it's as simple as boarding up a property that doors are open, windows are open, nobody's living there, kids can get in, all the way up to even demolishing properties that have just become zombie properties. So the local law has been in draft form for a little over a month now. Before the board can take any action on it, we would have to run through the Seeker Part 2. So I'll leave it up to the board what they want to do for the next step.
Okay, so first off, we've had this for a month. Has everybody had an opportunity to review it? Is there questions on the law part? So there's no questions or concerns on that part. And I think we need to move on to the seeker part. Is there anything?
Can I back up just a bit? The intent was to work with companies that were abandoning them from out of town. But as I read all of this and have gone through this, it looks like we've taken the entire town, even everybody here, and moved them into a situation where they are in more peril and they would be required to do more things if somebody were to call in any of these problems. Are abandoned silos considered a structure under this, or are farms exempt, Sarah?
I thought it was for residential and commercial properties. That's the way I read it. It's not
Okay.
ag.
So, I mean, we have people going around saying that silos and houses that are open and farms are being calculated and saying that those could have the same issues. Why are we allowing one group one way and making other groups the other way? If we're going to do it, we ought to be consistent with everybody, because a building on a farm that has no doors and is collapsing, or silos, okay, offer the same attractive nuisances and everything else. I don't think we should key into that. I'm happy to do a carve out for non-residentials or something like that. I don't know how I can actually come up with the wordage for that. That would be one thing. Rodent infestation or infestation by other insects. That is so broad to me. It could be just about anything. Is there a way we can define that and articulate what exactly we're dealing with? I know we all have the picture of rats, and things like that, but rodent infestation and infestation by other insects or pests, that is everything and anything. So if somebody's going to use that rule or law to call in and say, I have this going on, okay, we will now be able to respond to those types of requests. They could be unfounded, I guess, okay, but depending on what it is, the language here is so broad, I'm concerned about it. In number G, and in the section, just G in that section, presenting any other danger to health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the public. It seems to me that's a really great legal catch-all for just about anything we want. And again, if the law is to carve out abandoned buildings and things like that, we've just now made everybody's buildings at any complaint structure at any time part of this, and that can be used against it. One of the things I liked is that all of this stuff did have to go in front of the town board as the elected representatives of the property owners. I did like that. Okay, and if we couldn't effect repair, minimal repair, and then it goes to court after that, at least we gave constituent review by the electeds. I did appreciate that, and I'm glad that's in there. We have the ability to remove houses in three different sections here, and repairing and doing quick stuff, plywood and stuff like that. I'm all for that, for an attractive nuisance or something. But again, it seems awful broad to me. So that was what I came away with this. And I would offer, actually seek any suggestions, guys, as to how to make the law fair for everybody, so that any structure that's considered this would be considered, or none of them considered, and we do a carve out for what we're really trying to do. So I'd seek input on that. I really, that's what I took away from this. We're taking this law, and it was beautifully written, and it takes control of everything. And I don't want control over all the constituents that way.
So Kevin, to address some of your points, the New York State building codes exempt ag from the codes with regard to structures and building code compliance. Okay. So that's off the table to begin with. Regarding pests and rodents and stuff, the design of the law is pretty much mirrors what the New York State property maintenance laws dictate, and that is public safety, personal safety, having to do with rodents, infestation, pests, basically to protect the neighbors. So if I've got, which I have some places where their trash is piling up and it's a rodent infestation, for instance, where it's an abandoned building and I've got rats going back and forth and raccoons and other pests and animals, disease carrying animals, and they're going to the neighbors, that's a problem. That's a health problem. What we try to do, we being us as code officers, is with these types of regulations is to work in partnership with the health department. Because we both cross paths with things like tires stored where mosquitoes are breeding, or stagnant pools, or septic systems running out onto the ground. So it's more than just the code office, it's the health department as well. What this does is it provides a better vehicle for us to take pretty much, it's by design, it's to help us with the properties that are not typically locally owned properties.
Is there a way we could carve it out?
If we could carve it out to do that, that's fine. However, we also get into situations where they are locally owned and they're in, I've got one up the road here that's been an ongoing issue of compliance for the property that is still listed legally under the owner's names, but they both vacated the place and they just leave it up to a maintenance firm, for instance, to take care of.
But the property is not considered abandoned at that time, correct?
It's abandoned.
Is there any clarifications under abandoned?
There's notifications on the house, as far as who to contact, which is the out-of-state firm. It's abandoned, but it's not so dilapidated that I can post it as uninhabitable. So you have different levels, Kevin. You're going to have abandoned structures, you're going to have uninhabitable structures, and then you're going to have condemned structures. And those that are not maintained or kept track of, that have the absentee landlord, for instance, they typically just keep going down that path. When they reach a certain point, and there's benchmarks where they reach that point, then that posting gets done. Okay.
Have you posted at some point in time the three of the three prior to this kicking in? Do you go through the three before these kick in?
Yep.
Okay, so we've gone through abandoned, uninhabitable, and condemned.
Right. The issue with the condemned, where they need to be raised, taken down, because of no ownership, no liability on anybody other than maybe a out-of-state, across the country bank or something. What I find from them when I start notifying them to tell them that this property is in imminent danger and needs to come down, what I see them doing is all of a sudden they're reaching out to all the realtors. And now I get a swarm of realtors calling me. Sometimes they go up for taxes. Sometimes these parcels are left vacant, and then by the time they go through the tax roll and 3 years later, they're up for taxes. Then I also get the out-of-towners that will come in and buy them for cheap property. And if they're not posted correctly, they'll come in and put people in these houses. The issue becomes they're structurally unfit at that point.
I did see one in here about like porch repairs and stuff like that, like people showing up to porches and then creating a problem with an unkept porch. There was stuff in here that I was definitely in agreement with. I'm trying to figure out on this and all the rules that I'm good with quiet enjoyment and the property stays as is, and it may not be looking beautiful for one person, but it doesn't bother somebody else up until the point where it starts to bother the neighbors. Then I'm all over it as far as one person's not doing something is now affecting the next. Okay, I'm having trouble defining that in here as far as instead of putting everybody into this thing. I wish there was a way to tweak it a little bit so it was a little more defined, so that we just can't start calling everybody up and complaining.
If I can make a comment to the board, I want everybody aware of the fact that one of the towns that I was in for a while in a different county passed a law very similar to this. What happens, and this is the warning to the board, is if the town, through a law like this, basically takes ownership of demolishing the property, it will go on the tax levy, but then when it comes up for taxes, there may not be enough money left to pay the town back. So I just want you guys aware of that. It's going to put the town's money out there to get these things taken care of, but there's no guarantee the town's going to get their money back. That's my one warning that I would like to make sure, and I think Dan agrees with me.
Yeah, totally. The city of Cortland does the same thing. I'd say they're made whole most of the time, but there is the occasion where exactly what you said can happen.
But isn't part of the point of this is to prevent that from happening, to addressing these issues before it gets to the point where the buildings need to be torn down?
The law itself is to be able to give the town the ability, when it reaches the point of a dangerous structure, to be able to have the means to go and basically take it down. That's in the most extreme sense.
Yeah.
Okay? Or if the town has to put forth money to post this place up, get it placarded, keep the lawn mowed, keep the roadway or driveway plowed, because in order to maintain this place as a viable resident or business, I've got to be able to make sure that I can get first responders there any time of the year. So there's other expenses that will come into play, and that's lawn mowing, tree trimming, snow plowing, whatever it takes, plus boarding things up. So these are the expenses that ultimately, if they don't get done, the house eventually just deteriorates and more or less falls into the ground. But in the meantime, we don't have the ability to keep the meth cookers out of there. I'm fortunate enough with the town of Cortlandville to have the infamous Pink House down the road finally get bought up, but I think that was through auction and taken care of. But in the meantime, as code officers, we went through a lot.
But that's what I mean. From my understanding when reading this, the idea is more to address some of these issues on these properties before buildings become so dilapidated, so that they can, if the owners are going to abandon them, not take care of them, but if the town's going to come in and do some of the safety measures so that it can go up for auction, get sold, be taken care of by somebody else before it gets left completely to ruin. I mean, that was my understanding.
And that's part of the objective.
I would say that's like a byproduct of what you're doing.
Correct.
That's how it reads to me.
The main goal is to make the property safe, though, so that you don't have a kid
safe
going in
and/or so that it could be sold if it goes up for auction or whatever. Right. But if you just ignore it and leave it.
Yeah. And one thing to point out, like, this law does not change the obligations of the property owner. They still, it's not making it any more onerous for them. They still have to mow their lawns. Like, all those laws are already in place. This law gives, it's a last resort, really, for the town to step in. Where Kevin gets unresponsive property owners, then his hands are kind of tied unless we were to go to court. That's really the only other option. So they still have the same property maintenance obligations, whether this law is in place or not. This is just another way for the town to enforce those.
I do like the town board review. I thought that was a nice.
Yeah, it's a check and balance type thing. So, I mean, Kevin has to justify his decision to the board, and then the board decides, if that decision was ultimately appropriate before any.
Founded on a complaint?
What's that?
Can you find something, if somebody complains, can you find something unfounded?
Can I find it?
Yeah, I mean, no, can you find that the complaint was unfounded?
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time. People like to rat out their neighbors a lot, Kevin.
That's what I'm concerned. That's what I'm concerned. Okay, and it turns the neighbor.
Well,
against
but
neighbor.
no, in all seriousness, it's up to the code officer's decision, We make a lot of judgment calls in a day. A lot of judgment calls. And there are a lot of just, this neighbor is PO'd at this neighbor because of whatever. And I still have to follow up. I have to make sure, that this is a true complaint or an unfounded one. And I would say 50% of the time they're unfounded, but I still follow up, so.
I think you're a referee and a babysitter.
It's a straight shirt and a Westleberry. But, yeah, that's just part of the job. I think, Kevin, probably if there was some more of the definition that Dan and I could work with, the rodent infestation and pests, again, when designed in the New York State Property Maintenance Codes, is built around the idea that you don't want it to be infiltrating the neighbors.
Correct. And then I'm all over it.
Exactly. And obviously it's more of an issue here in a village than it is out in the town. But trust me when I tell you, it's still an issue in the town. So, and if that were a benchmark or a guideline, I'm sure we could put something like that into play when it becomes an issue. But most of the time, when I get complaints of rodents and pests with garbage, it typically comes from the neighbor that's having the problem. So, yeah.
Presenting any other danger to health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the public. Can we remove that one? Does that need to be in there? Kev?
To remove it?
Yeah, I mean.
Why would you remove it?
Present, because that's the bucket that catches everything. General welfare of the public. How would you?
The code office still would have to make its case. If Kevin's office were to rely on that provision, he has to make a strong case for why the property is unsafe. It is, I see your point that it's a bit of a catch-all, but it gives him that just broad discretion to make that case and to prove his point to the board.
Yeah, because for example, meth house isn't in here.
And that's what I was going to tell Kevin. I mean, that kind of goes back to, you got somebody in an abandoned house next door to your place and they're cooking meth. They may not be a bother to you. They may be the quietest neighbors you ever had. But if they're cooking meth and they're going to blow half a city block up, that's public welfare. I mean, it's tough to, Dan can't go through and label every situation. So we have to have somewhat of a catch-all that the code officer is going to use their discretion with.
If somebody's cooking meth in a barn, it's agricultural, then what happens?
Well,
they're off limits?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the meth cooking.
Oh, it's a legal activity, so of course they're not off limits.
Yeah. But other than that, agriculture is pretty much off the table.
The building the codes are, the safety codes are.
Yeah, it's, with that to keep going on the meth cooking, that's a law enforcement thing anyway.
It's a law enforcement issue.
But from a safety standpoint, if I've got other houses in the area, or if I've got a barn where they're cooking it, obviously the first ones I'm going to get in touch with will be law enforcement.
You're only going to get in trouble with ag and markets if there's a legitimate agricultural use going on.
Yeah.
More discussion?
Is trespassing law enforcement as well? I mean, do we?
Yeah.
Right. So if everything is reported as people lingering or as trespassing, doesn't that solve our problems before we get to that point. I understand attractive nuisance and it's presenting itself, but we still have the legal trespassing issue that would resolve problems. Can anybody offer me any differences or why we can't rely on the trespassing codes for law to remove kids and remove these kids and everything?
I can address that a little bit because the way the law reads now in New York State, unless you have trespassing signs up and spaced to meet the requirements, the law enforcement cannot do a thing. I've had that on my own property where they've actually broken into the building, but there was no trespassing signs up, so therefore there was nothing they could do. Have a good day, boys, and they let them go. That's how crazy our laws are. So, unfortunately.
I'm talked out.
What's that?
I'm talked out.
I didn't think that would ever happen.
Oh.
You
So
come
you
back at
good
recess,
moving
I'll come
forward
back.
then, or did they answer the questions well enough?
Yeah. Yes,
All right,
you
so-
did, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you.
I think now we'll need a motion and a second to move forward, and then we'll do the seeker.
Let's do the seeker first.
Do the seeker first?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so Dan's gonna work us through phase two?
Yep. So this is part 2 of the short environmental assessment form. So you have 2 answers you can choose. I'm going to ask you a series of 11 questions. So for each one, you have to respond that there will be no impact or that there could be a moderate or large impact. So the first question is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? So the answers that you could give are there would be no or there would be a large impact.
Read the question.
Yep. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? And some of these questions are going to be irrelevant too. Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of the land?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
With the proposed action, I would say yes, because if it's a
Impair.
dilapidated building.
He said impair.
Oh, impair, okay.
We're going for the opposite effect.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? There are no critical environmental areas. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways?
Mm.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Will the proposed action impact existing public, private, or private water supplies?
Minimal, should be nothing.
No. And the same question for wastewater treatment utilities.
Minimal.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
Okay, so you've answered in the negative to all, so the board can entertain a motion to declare a negative declaration for no negative environmental impact.
So you want to make that motion for negative environmental impact?
So it'll be a negative declaration.
I'll make a motion for negative declaration.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on that? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Signature on that bottom line. And with that, the board is free to consider the adoption of the local law.
So we should read this resolution that you prepared, correct? And use that as our,
Yep, if the motion is to adopt the law, I have a draft proposed resolution. The board would
So
like
we
me
need
to
a
read
motion first to move on to this, or do we use this?
that. No, I can read it and then somebody can move it.
Okay, let's do it then.
Okay. Whereas the town of Homer has authorized the attorney for the town to draft a local law for the regulation of unsafe buildings and structures within the town of Homer, and whereas the proposed local law was prepared by the attorney and presented to the town board, and whereas the town of Homer, after careful study and consideration of the proposed local law, after taking consideration of public comments, including a public hearing held on August 14th, 2024, has considered the local law for adoption. And whereas the town of Homer has undertaken an environmental review of the adoption of said local law, has made a determination of significance, unlisted action with a negative declaration required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas the town board of the town of Homer has considered the local law's impact on the residents of the town of Homer and determined that it is in the best interest of the residents to adopt a local law for the regulation of unsafe buildings and structures within the town of Homer. Now therefore be it resolved that local law number 1 of 2024, entitled "A Local Law to Enact an Unsafe Buildings and Structures Law for the Town of Homer," is hereby adopted. So that would be up for motion.
Okay, so I need someone to make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Need a second?
Second that.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Those opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay, that's what I do. That's it, yeah.
That's good. I'll get a.
Thank you. Kevin, sorry, you're up next. Or, I'm sorry.
Brian.
Brian. Too many Kevins tonight. Anyways, wherever you are, you're up.
I'm up. Okay.
And this is assessment information that we talked about last month, and
Shorter version.
Okay, so we had billboards, we had solar. Now I'm going to talk about the very popular topic of reassessment.
I think we get it all done one
So
night.
we had the triple going on right now. Okay, so Mike asked me to come and just have kind of a general discussion about the potential of the town doing a reassessment of all of the properties in town. What I can tell you is the last town-wide reassessment was back in 2011. Since then, the town has done a pretty good job of staying at 100%, and that occurred for about 8 years, and then we were at basically 95% equalization rate. I can talk a little bit about that as well, up until 2019. And then since then, the market has gone crazy, as everybody's pretty much aware of, and our equalization rate has dropped to 69%. So I look at a couple reasons why a town should do a reassessment of all the parcels. One of them is time. I like to think that you should do an update on assessments within about 10 years. So right there, we're at 13 years since the last one. The other thing that I look at is the equalization rate. Whenever you drop into the 80s or get below the 80s, then it's time to start talking about doing a reassessment.
like I said, we were pretty good for a while, and then the market went crazy, and then we took about a 25% drop in our utilization rate in the course of a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. So like I said, again, we're at 69%. So my opinion as the assessor of the town is it is time to start talking about it and to, I guess, put the wheels in motion to see what we can, to get a project in motion. I could talk all day about this. So what I'd like to do is just, if the board has any questions that they want to ask, I can answer, or we can, I can talk. What I've handed you is, frequently asked questions about reassessments. And one of the biggest kind of misconceptions about a reassessment is that the town is trying to raise more money. That is not the case. My position as the assessor of the town is that I'm all about fair and equitable assessments. So when you haven't done kind of a refresh of assessments over the course of time, they get out of whack. They become unequitable because different parts of the town appreciate over the course of time in relation to other parts of the town. So as properties appreciate and the assessments don't change over time, then they become underassessed. And any time that a property is underassessed, that means that there's other properties that are overassessed. So when you have properties that are overassessed, they're subsidizing the properties that are underassessed. And that's not fair, and that's not equitable. So when you do a reassessment, you kind of wipe the slate clean, and then you're going to value every single property in my estimation of what the current market value is. So in a perfect world, I'll come up with the exact current market value of every single property in the town, and everybody will be assessed and taxed fairly. Now, we don't live in a perfect world, so there's a whole process where the property owners are involved in the final result of what their new assessment will be. And that's what I handle. That's what my office handles. It has to do with coming up with a new assessment, meeting with property owners in an informal setting. If property owners aren't satisfied, then they can grieve their assessment. If they're still not satisfied, then they can have an administrative review. If they're not satisfied there, they can have a judicial review. So there's all kinds of options to get the assessment correct when it's all said and done, which leads to a product of fair and equitable assessments. So, the other thing that I did do is a discussion on what the equalization rate is. Real quick, the equalization rate is something where the state comes in and they say that the town of Homer is worth this amount. Then they compare that to the total value of all the assessments put together. And the difference is a percentage, that's the equalization rate. So having an equalization rate at 100% is advantageous to the town because whenever you share a budget, in this case, the county is who we share a budget with, you want to have a true value of the assessment. So if we're at 70%, let's just say, then in order to share the budget with the other towns in the county, we have to be equalized up to 100%. So you're going to add, in essence, 30% to the value of the town. And that's going to, in theory, and this is usually what happens, is that you're going to bloat the value of the town. So what that means is that the town is going to be paying more than their fair share of what they should if we were at 100%. So where we stand right now, we're at 69%. I've just finished a reval in the city of Cortland, so the city's at 100%. I am in the process of doing a reval for the town of Virgil. They will be at 100%. So just those two municipalities, as part of the county, we're going to be paying more than our fair share when it's all said and done, until we get back up to 100%. So that's not the number one reason on my side of things. Again, like I said, my whole stance, my job is to be fair and equitable to every property. So by doing a reval, that gets us as close as I can get us to that stance.
So I had a discussion with Kevin Fitch, our chairman of the county legislators, and we're going over that. So as you may be and may not be aware, they're renegotiating the sales tax with the city right now. So coming out the other side, the towns are going to take the hit. We're going to take the hit. There's no doubt about it. There's X number of dollars going around. County needs more. The city needs more. Not to say we don't need more, but it's the only place it's going to come from us. But part of that, talking with them, is they look at what our evaluation is. And that's figured into part of the formula. So the lower our evaluation is, it's going to hurt us. And it also hurts the county, because when I was county chair, we were looking at the total value of the county, and that really impacts everything with the state and stuff. This year we're at 69% right now, but by the end of this year, going into next year, we're probably going to drop down about 63, 64.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Is there a point in time where the state will say you guys need to do something?
No. No. There are municipalities in the state that are under 5% equalization. So, yeah, that's something that the board should know. This isn't mandated by the state. The town doesn't have to do a reval. But I think we've gotten to the point where it needs to be done to be fair to everybody. Because again, anybody that's underassessed, whether it's a little bit or a lot, is being subsidized by somebody else. So just, in the whole scheme of things, that's just not fair. And, I don't have exact numbers on who's underassessed and who's overassessed. You don't know all that stuff until it's all said and done. But, over the course of time, that just happens naturally. Because, like I said, parts of the town appreciate more than other parts of the town. The village probably appreciates a lot more than the rural parts of the town, just the way that it is. So that's my driving, intent of town to the group. But it's not mandated. No.
So I think the other part of this to keep in mind, so if you take a property that's valued at $100,000 and you're paying our rate right now the value is worth, say, $200,000. That doesn't mean your taxes are going up by that much, because the town, as we're developing our budget, we need X number of dollars. Now that's spread out at a dig, so our actual tax rate will most likely come down.
Oh, yes. As the assessor, it better.
Yeah.
Speaking to the town board. So, yeah, and that kind of goes back to one of the major misconceptions that people have. So, again, I'll reference the city of Cortland. When it was all said and done, the average increase in assessment was 60%. Okay? So on the surface, that's like, whoa. But they hadn't done a reassessment in 16 years. Okay? So to give you perspective on that, if you had an assessment of $100,000, now you have an assessment of $160,000. So that person sees a $60,000 increase in their assessment. So on the surface, that person's going, my taxes are going to double, or they're going to go up significantly. But in actuality, since the average was 60%, that example, they're going to see no change in their taxes, or the normal change from year to year. Taxes go up every year, we all know that. But they're going to see the normal change, not a 60% change, because the average was 60%. So that could very well happen, in the town of Homer. We could see an average increase of 60%. But for each individual property owner, it's all, the effect on your taxes is all in relation to what that average is. So if somebody's assessment goes up 50% and the average is 60, and this is the people that don't believe this, their share of the burden is actually going down, and their taxes are going to go down. Okay? Somebody that goes up 70%, yeah, it's higher than the average. Their share of the burden is now increased. But in theory, that person has been underassessed for years. So that person has been able to be underassessed, not pay the right amount of taxes, and has been able to keep that. The person that has been overassessed, has paid too much for years and years, doesn't get a refund. All right? So that's, to me, the injustice, and that's why I feel that you have to do a reassessment, you know, on a regular basis to keep, you know, it fair and equitable. So
getting into the financial aspects of this, you've got the sheet here. Can you just go over that real quick?
Okay. So there is a cost to it. This is, there's a lot of hours, extra hours that I put into it. With the valuation, with the data collection of inventory, with the meeting with people, and things like that. So there's a lot of hours that go into it. That's a price that I come up with because I am the assessor. So it's an in-house number. I was, while I was doing the city of Cortland revale, I think I met with 350 people when it was all said and done. There was an article about the city of Oswego that did a revale. And they hired a company out of Rochester or Buffalo. And all I can say is that it was 5 times that number that was on that page. And I was like, whew. And they had all kinds of problems. So not to pat myself on the back, but I'm going to, I was like, we didn't have nearly as many problems, meaning, disgruntled property owners. You're going to have that the city of Oswego had. So the only other cost is postage. So when you do a reval, data collection part, or to get the inventory up to speed, is to send a data mailer to every residential property owner, and we simply ask them to look at the inventory that we currently have on file, and we ask them to make sure that it's accurate. We hope that people are honest about it and that they give us a good response. The alternative, and this just doesn't happen anymore. When I first started this, when you did a reval, you would send out a team of data collectors, and they would go door to door, knock on people's doors, ask if they could do not an inspection of the house, but a review of the house to get a room count, bathroom count, get a feel for the condition. It's costly, and this day and age, people aren't going to let people just knock on doors and walk in. So I don't even, bring that up as an option. So this is kind of the way that we do data collection and inventory review, is to mail out a data mailer and ask people to be as honest as they can.
So if I understand this right, the total is $49,175 plus postage, but it could be offset.
It's including postage.
What's that?
That number's with
the postage, and then the offset. There's the state aid could offset at $6,000.
Yeah.
Or
okay. So this is how state aid works. So in the New York State budget, they have a certain pool of money for reassessment projects. I don't know what that number is, but it's a bucket of money. What the state says is that they will reimburse a municipality up to $5 per parcel, okay, to do a reassessment project. And that's something my office handles as far as all the paperwork goes. It's never $5 per parcel, okay? Because it all depends on how many communities are doing revals and how many parcels are part of, the whole yearly process. So I would say that it's usually in the $2 range when it's all said and done. So that's why I kind of put that, kind of range. So I would say anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 would be reimbursed back to the town in the form of state aid.
Question, Scott?
Do you have any concerns at all, just with the way things are going with the economy right now and interest rates and things like that, are we reaching a bubble or like we have before where all of a sudden we could see housing prices just because of interest rates going down and the economy not doing well changing?
So you're saying like a reverse in, home prices?
Yeah.
So that really, that would be okay in this situation. If the market kept doing this, then our equalization rate would probably drop again. But if there was a plateau, then that's fine. If there's a decrease, I don't think it's going to be a drop off the cliff thing. But if there was a decrease, we would still have 100% equalization. We may actually, in theory, have a higher than 100%. It will give us 100%. So when you do a reval, you're valuing everybody with the same yardstick. Okay? So I'm going to look at sales that have occurred within the last 5 years. So in the last 5 years, we've had sales go like this. But I'm using those same sales to measure everybody. So now we have assessments, that are a capture of time. And as long as they're equitable, then what the market does after that is it's relevant, but not completely relevant to making sure that it's equitable. And that kind of goes back to my point, is that this whole exercise is to get us back to being equitable as opposed to being at 100%. If I was confident that we're at 69% and when I look at sales come through that were equitable, then I wouldn't really be here having this discussion. But I don't see that. And that goes back to the factor of time. It's just been so long since the town's done something that we have inequity involved. It needs to be balanced out. So to answer your question, no, that doesn't concern me. But if you're concerned about, how the reval is going to affect somebody's pocketbook, then that again goes to, if they're fairly assessed now, then their taxes are going to stay basically the same. If they're one of these, part of the population that's overassessed, then that's going to help that part of the population because their taxes are going to go down. But there are going to be people that, are, struggling that could have their taxes go up because they're overassessed. That is a real possibility.
Well, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah. So that
we've kind of had, the way the economy's been and prices going up, but if we're kind of peaking and things go the other way and interest rates drop and maybe home prices settle or drop down, and then we raise the value of somebody's house that's struggling to pay their bills, and then their interest rates go up or their taxes go up.
Right.
So, I'm just asking for like the timing of it because I just feel like the last few years are a bit of an anomaly for what normally happens for home values and prices. And I bought a house in 2008. I was one of those people that my house was worth significantly less immediately after I bought it.
Okay.
So I've been through that.
So if that's everybody.
I think, but it matters when you buy the house though, because if you've owned your home for 30 years versus if you just bought a house, the people who just bought the house, their assessed value are going to be higher because you have a transaction to go with it. That's the ones that have owned their homes for a long time. So
I'm going to take that sale. That's a recent sale. Let's just say it's a 1900 old style house, 2,000 square feet, and it just sold for $200,000. So that's going to be a sale that I'm going to use for these 20 other houses that are very similar to it that haven't sold. So those houses are going to be valued at $200,000 too.
Okay.
So now there's equity involved, and where there wasn't entirely equity beforehand. That's the idea. So if these folks were in the ballpark equalized out their assessment, then their taxes aren't going to change too much. But if you had a house that was way under assessed, that's now assessed, what it could sell for, then that person's taxes, are going to go up. So that leads to another point, which is, I don't know if we were going to talk about it tonight, but there are exemptions. So we have a part of the community that's on fixed income. We have, part of the community that's 65 and older. They're on fixed incomes. So there is an exemption that the town has always opted into, but the state has made an adjustment to it. It's called the senior citizens exemption. So what that allows is an exemption for folks that are over 65 and have low, quote unquote, low income, limited income. So for years, and I don't know how long the income has been set at this, but for the town of Homer, in order to qualify, your income had to be less than $16,200. Now, my office, we deal with this basically year round. Any married couple that's over 65 that gets Social Security makes over $16,000. So to me, that's an antiquated number right there. I don't know how long it's been that number, but in the past, the town could raise that number to $37,400. Okay. What I've seen, what I think is, I'll take that. Recently, a year or two ago, the state actually raised $37,400 to $58,400, and that's something like we have discussed a little bit, and I ran some numbers for him. And for any of the town board members, you can forward the email that I sent to you. But basically, what it is that if the town decided to raise the income limit for the senior citizens exemption to $58,400, any property owner over 65 that has a household income less than $50,000 would get a 50% break on their town tax. Okay? Now, we all know, as town board members, and Mike knows this, the town tax rate is the lowest tax rate, I think, in the county, but it's the lowest tax rate anybody in the town of Homer pays. So the school's always the highest, and you get the county and the village, if you're in the village, and then the town is the lowest. So when I ran the numbers, and we have a handful of people that qualify because the income limit is so low, there aren't a lot of people that qualify. You would have a lot more people qualify. And I ran some numbers and did some estimates. Make a long story short, it would, to the average taxpayer in the town of Homer, average assessment, it would raise their taxes about $8 a year. And this is, just my 2 cents on it, is that $8 to the average taxpayer, it's a cup of coffee, basically. To the senior citizen that is going to get a 50% break, 45% break, even a 5% break, because it's on a sliding scale, is significant. So that could be hundreds of dollars to that person. So, again, my 2 cents is I think that it's a good look for the town, it's helpful for the people that need it, and it's not detrimental to the rest of the population. So, but the way that the law works is that you don't have to set it at 58.4. You can set it at any number you want to set it at, and you can have a sliding scale. But the max that you can do is 58.4, and then again, the ramifications of that, I don't think, to the average taxpayer are significant.
So Brian, this is, how long of a process would this be?
This would take a couple of assessment rolls. So we're currently working on a 25 roll. It would not be for the 26 roll, it would be for the 27 roll. So to give you perspective on when people would get change of assessment notices, that would be March 1st of 2027.
So the other question, we're not gonna vote on this tonight, but if we vote on this next month, does that give you an opportunity, do we still have the opportunity to get in your queue for 25?
Gotcha, yeah, yes.
Because this is all new information, everybody, so I want to have an opportunity to process this.
Yeah,
and read this.
I encourage, anybody on the board, anybody in the community to reach out to me with any questions.
Okay.
that you have. Because, an educated population, an educated board, makes my life so much easier. Getting ahead of it on the front end makes the back end a lot harder. I've learned that.
Raising the rate to 58.4, is that the town board's decision to make?
So you're talking about the senior citizens?
Yes.
Yeah. The town is already opted into the senior citizens exemption. So the current income limit is $16,200. The town board, at any time, can change the limit. So the maximum that you can change the limit right now is 58. But you can change it to 25. I see the county, I think, is at 22.2. Yeah, they're at 22.2. A lot of towns parallel counties. You guys aren't doing that. I don't know why they do that, but I've seen that in some other towns.
I've had 2 senior citizens call me in the last month asking if we could do something because it's the difference of them being able to stay in their house.
Yeah.
So that's something that discussion our town board has to have. If you're okay with that, I haven't shared this with the board because I didn't have your permission.
Sure.
I'll share this with the board and it'll really explain it. But I forgot to ask your permission. I didn't want to do it without your
I appreciate that, but no.
Okay. So I'll email this to everybody in the next day or two. Any other questions for Brian? I know it's getting late, and still a little bit more business to do. And it's not often we go this late, but we just have a ton of stuff I want to get through tonight.
Yes. One question. So if the household income is 58,000, does that qualify the home for the 50%, or is it like for 5%?
So the top limit is 58.4.
Okay.
So if somebody makes 58,399,
yeah,
then they're going to get a 5%.
5%. Okay.
And then it's basically $1,000 increments. 5% every $1,000 to
Till you get up to 50%.
And then anybody that makes less than 50,000 on down gets a 50% grant. You can't be any higher than 50%.
Yep.
And again, on their whole tax bill, it's only the town. You're only the town. So you're not dictating what the county's going to do or what the school's going to do. And again, it's not a ton savings for them because our rate is so low. But it's a gesture in the right direction.
We went 2 years going through this assessment, so if there's going to be a major housing correction in prices, that should happen within the next.
Yeah, and one thing to look at is that our equalization rate, and again, the equalization rates are figured out by the state, and they look at trends in the markets, and that's how we get impacted by that. So last year it was 69%, this year it was 69%. So right there, that tells me that there's a leveling. Other towns, there was still a dip. Like I think Virgil went down 5%. Cortland, we went up to 100 because we did the revale. So that tells me that there's, a leveling in the eyes of the state. I review every single sale that comes through, all of my towns, including Tacoma. So I do still see pretty big sales. So I'm not convinced of that, but it's cooled off a lot in the last year from where it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Ron. I really appreciate it. I know it's late. We got a couple more things to get through here. Hopefully these will go quick. So the next up on our agenda is our town clerk's office printer. So our printer is approximately 7 years old. It's time to update it. It's working well. It's not that it's been breaking down, but we need to update it. So we went out and we got some other pricing. So you've got the packets in front of you. So right now we have a Toshiba. So they gave us another price on updating the machine. But what I'm recommending, and that's with the clerk's consent on that, is to go to a new used copier. Now that sounds kind of funny, but they use copiers. So this gentleman lives right here in Homer. He's a Homer resident, pay Homer taxes. Copier product sales and service. So what he does, he travels the whole United States. Big corporations buy hundreds of copiers. A lot of times these copiers don't even have 10 copies run through it. Every year they cycle them out, and that's what he buys. He brings them, goes through them. You have the same brand new warranty that a new machine has, only it's maybe 1 model year old with very minimum copies. Fully guaranteed. He lives here in Homer. He'll service them. Kevin, you did not get that, or you can't?
I don't, I have this right here.
Oh, I thought it was in the, oh, okay. All right, so we can pass this around. So what it is, it will be for purchase price. So what it also is going to give us 4 trays to print. We have 3 now. It'll do our envelopes. It'll do our labeling. It'll do their checks. It'll have a stapler built into it. So when they do our board packets or any big thing, it can automatically staple it, or it can automatically punch it. So it's going to be a time saver for the clerks. A brand new, the purchase this machine is $3,395, installation charge of $3,500. It's a 1-year unlimited warranty. If anything happens, he'll bring us in another new one. But he lives a block away. He'll be right here to repair it. Toshiba was. So their price was $4,300, just a little bit more, but it didn't quite offer all the features that this other copier is offering. So we're getting more for the price on that one. We did reach out to another company, but they didn't get back to us for the price. Am I correct? So we tried. We got our 2 prices. We're under the threshold. We can get away with 2 prices. We need to make a decision because we need to copy. We're in a year contract, or it keeps going until we opt out of it with Toshiba. We gotta give them a 30-day notice. So if we opt out of it, it'll end by the end of the year. We'll have the new printer here. The existing printer, our thought is, and I know it's going to be hard to believe, but our highway garage wants a computer. So we're going to end up, I think, repurposing that either to the highway garage, or we are going to talk with the court clerks and see if that may be a better fit for them, and then move theirs over. So one way or another, it's going to get recycled because the copier still doesn't work well, but we're just we want to make sure we don't have any issues being the age on it.
Can I back up for just a minute?
Yes.
You had mentioned the price of $33.95. Install brought it up to $35. Am I correct? So it's just a few $100s to do the install.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the purchase price would be $3,395. Installation charge was $350, and that could vary. He said if we might be better off just having our IT guys that we use, and all it's got to do is be programmed to our server and to the computers.
I see.
And he says, and that could save if he has to do it, he's slower at it. He was just right out. He was very upfront. He's slower at it. It could be at the max 350. Our IT guys might be able to do it in an hour or 2 by remoting it. So we could have a little bit of a savings there. His contract for the year, which everybody does, is more cost effective. He was quite substantially cheaper per page, per print for black and white. So that would be my recommendation that we move forward with that.
You want to make a decision on this tonight?
I would like to, because we need to get our contract canceled or we're going to be locked in for another year.
Just to reconfirm, we're between the $2,000 and $4,000 range with 2 quotes.
We tried to get 3.
Okay.
I mean, we try to make sure we're following it. We got 2 back, but they've been trying for 2 months.
Right.
So this has been in the process.
So we're slotted for, okay, I'm good with it.
So would somebody make that motion? I really don't want to make the motion.
I'd like a motion to proceed with the 2553 CI Digital MFP for a purchase price of $33.95 and an installation charge of up to $350.
Need a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So we'll notify them tomorrow, cancel the contract with Toshiba. Thank you. The next thing is, and this is probably the biggest one in the night, this is our town logo. So as you know, our shirts all have the new town logo. Well, I'm hoping it's going to be our new town logo. So we're looking forward to rebrand our town looking like this, to modernize it. I don't know if the other one was officially ever adopted, but the town's been here a long time. Mr. Sweeney, our historian, he's very much in favor of it. He likes it also because it kind of modernizes the town, but still keeps a lot of the old flavor of what we're trying to do. So I would like, if we own this, we reached out to Good News Computing. They're the ones that designed that, and they gave us a full release. The town of Homer now owns that logo forever. So I'd like to adopt this as the official town of Homer logo.
Are you making that motion?
I'll make that.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Second got the shirt.
We got the shirts on, so you guys got it.
You already adopted it.
I'll tell you what, that really, and Dan got me on that. He did when we did our procurement policy, he
Pulled it off your website.
He pulled it off the website. Yeah. And I just like that. I mean, it really sparked compared to our, and again, I'm not making fun of the old one, but that was our old logo, and that's our new logo.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just trying to get us in the 21st century. And Mr. Sweeney did ask us if we do adapt this, if he can use it quite possibly on a cover of another book. Of the book. So
right.
Homer will be famous worldwide. Okay, so we got a motion, we got a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next one, two more things, and we'll be out of here, guys. Selective insurance premium renewal. You have them in front of you. I've been in contact with Bailey Insurance. They put it out to 3 to 4 different vendors to come back with quotes. One refused to quote it because it's a municipality. We got 2 other quotes, so we tried again to make our 3. It's going to go up about approximately $1,000, so we can lock in again for $43,157.48. So we did our due diligence. It meets our procurement policy. And we reached out. I like the idea. I mean, we could reach out to Syracuse or someplace, but Bailey's local. They live in the town of Homer. They pay town of Homer taxes, and they're very competitive. So I think personally we should stick with them. So I need someone to make that motion, or is there? And then we'll have any discussion.
I'll make the motion to accept the renewal.
Second. I'll second it. Any other discussion on that? Okay, those in favor of going with Bailey Insurance and selective renewal, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The other thing for information, and you have that in here, the village still is very interested in getting some charging stations here in another 4 years. So they've been talking to me on it. They wrote us a letter here. So we have it. I told the village board, we can't give them an answer right now. And the reason I'm saying that is because we're going to be affected in a couple ways with our renovation project down here. I've got to know what our total draw is versus what the draws for these are going to be. So if we're okay electric-wise without revamping our electrical service, who's going to pay the increased cost? Along with that goes, and I'm very interested, we need to get an emergency generator, backup generator here. That's going to affect that generator too, because if you have 4 cars plugged in, the power goes out, that generator kicks in, those cars are going to be drawing power instantly. So I need to see, when I say we need to see what the draw is going to be. So I told them this is on hold till we get that figured out. But I wanted to bring it to you guys. Are you okay with me saying that? And
Can
We gotta do our due diligence on this.
I think it makes perfect sense. You've got could be a fairly big expense if we had to bring in a new electrical service to meet the needs of, one little thing here.
Right. And they did say they got some grant money, so that, if it is gonna be an increase, personally, I think they need to pay for it.
Can we also add to this if we're researching this and looking into it? I've been reading some really interesting articles about like the safety of these and the radiation they emit.
Okay.
So can we somehow, before we commit to putting these in too, like get a little more information on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Apparently they do give off quite a bit of,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah,
Okay.
so whoever lives near them,
The charger systems?
the charging stations do.
I wasn't
First I
aware of that, yeah. Okay.
So I think at least needs to be looked at because it's a relatively new thing in general, these stations going in, and it's just one of the side effects they're finding.
Yeah, because I mean, it's gonna be right here, and we got residential and everything right here, because they wanna put it, their ideal place is out front here, but I don't know if that is the ideal place. So that's something that we're gonna have to sort out going forward. Again, we're not saying no, but I think we don't
No,
have enough
definitely not no,
information
just-
to make a good decision.
Would like to make sure they're safe.
Okay, with that, Dan, did you have anything else you need to bring to us?
No, I will get with Heather to get the local law filing signed and stamped, and I'll get that filed
Okay.
for tonight.
Anything from any of the other board members they need to bring up? Guys, I know it was a long meeting tonight. We covered a lot of information, and I appreciate it. And we won't make it down to the list, but we needed to do it.
For a minute there, I thought Fred was running this company.
He would have had you out here earlier, so I'm sorry. With that, the meeting's adjourned. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody.